in our relationships, a lot of times when I didn't feel heard or when I was upset with something, things weren't going how I wanted, or we were having a back and forth, I would immediately get angry and get frustrated and get loud and then start throwing stuff, get physical. And like I said, I always felt guilty, but it came to a point when we had that conversation that the shame set in, because it was like, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I control this anger? Where is this anger even coming from? Because in situations where sometimes it could easily be resolved by just a discussion, why does it have to go from 0 to 100 real quick? What's up, real ones? Welcome back to the Relationship Podcast, where we're bringing the real back to relationships.
Yes, sir.
I'm Asha Steele.
I'm Devin Steele.
And we're so excited that you guys are tuning in today.
Yeah, because today we're going to be discussing a really important topic. We're going to be discussing shame and how it impacts relationships. So I'm really looking forward to how this really impacts the people who listen to it, specifically the men who listen to it, because I think that a lot of men deal with suffering from shame.
Yeah, for sure. But before we get into today's topic, I just want to make a quick announcement, right? Mm-hmm. Because we have been getting so many people, like on our regular errands that we're running, our day-to-day basis, coming up to us, telling us how much they love the podcast, how it has impacted their lives. Just watching it, the reach has been incredible, especially in the Houston area. Like, it's been insane. But just the other day, right, we were having a family outing. We were out for our taco, I can't say Taco Tuesday, but we were out for
because you want to eat tacos Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Tuesday,
Friday,
y'all, so it's
Saturday,
Taco Tuesday.
Sunday.
But no, we were out for our, family gathering.
The truth is, Asha just didn't feel like cooking. So we had to go find something to eat. It's not like this thing was planned and we just was going to go get tacos. She put out, let's just keep it real. It was dinner time. So she goes to the refrigerator and she takes out the chicken wings. And the chicken wings aren't unthawed. So she looks at me and was like, man, these chicken wings are still frozen. Do you want to unthaw them for me? But she's giving me this look like, you better say no, because I don't feel like cooking.
Listen.
So I read her cues and I was just like, you know what? You don't look like you feel like cooking tonight. Let's just go get your tacos. And she was excited to go get the tacos.
You just had to share the whole scenario.
Yeah, but because it wasn't planned. It's not like we had a family get together.
Okay,
and
but we were
every
out
Wednesday
for a
we go
outing.
out and eat and talk about life. Like, no, she didn't feel like cooking.
I'm done. That's real. But, it was a family outing, okay? And yeah, late in the day, you don't want to pull out some frozen meat and have it thawed out all night. You need to,
You don't need to thaw it out all night. I know there are times when you were a kid and you forgot to take out the chicken from the freezer when you were young and when your mom told you to, and you go ahead and fill up the sink with some water, put that thing in there upside down, thaw it out. So there's tricks to the trade on how to unthaw. But it's possible.
It's possible.
It's possible. There's a lot of times when I was a kid, I got it unthauged in like 10 to 15 minutes before my mom got home.
We wanted these tacos. Let's get to this, okay? We wanted these tacos as a mutual family decision. We wanted the tacos, okay? So we go to the taco truck and we're sitting there eating, and a woman comes up to us. She was sitting there for waiting for her food as well. With her daughter, I think. And then as she's leaving, she comes up to us and she's, sharing how much she loves the podcast. Her and her husband had watched it, helped them through, a tough time that they were going through in their relationship. And she was explaining to you how a lot of what you were saying was resonating with her husband as well. And to me, I know this might sound a little crazy, but I think it's so amazing when we are out, because, we were at a taco truck. It was people that were, Hispanic. And she was, I believe, Hispanic as well. But to me, it's so amazing when we reach people who don't look like us.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that we reach people that do look like us and resonate with us, because it's not enough, as we talked about before, serious conversations that really impact our community, that helps us, really dissect why things are the way they are, how we can be better, couples, better families, better individuals in general, right? Not a lot of positive things that's putting out in the world to help us as a community. But to see us reaching so many people, so many different type of demographics, I think it's so amazing because it's like what we're saying is not limited.
Yeah.
And I think that's the impact that we really wanted to have when we sat down, decided to make this podcast of the Real Relationships podcast is real across the board. Yeah. It doesn't matter. And I think it was a comment that you actually sent me the other day as well from a man who had said something as well, like about us resonating with him as well. And it's just like people that don't look like you, people that aren't from the same, background or, upbringing that you have, being able to resonate with what you're saying, I think it speaks volumes for what we're doing. And that's why I say I think it's so amazing just because we started this because we wanted to be a platform that helps individuals that do look like us, that are from our community, that are struggling because there's not enough conversations around, getting married and how to navigate those challenges that you have in your relationship, the challenges that you have in your family. But to sit back and see how much it's grown and how much it's impacted so many other people as well, I think it's amazing. So just having people come up to us on a consistent basis and just seeing how we inspire them and how we're helping their relationship and their families and all that stuff, it really makes me happy to hear those types of comments and feedback. So if y'all see us out, come up to us. Like, we want to communicate back to y'all. We're not one of them couples or people that's just like, oh, hey, very standoffish. No, like, we want to hear from y'all because we're doing this so that we can hear from y'all and see how it is impacting y'all. So I just love it. I love hearing from y'all, the real ones out there in the community, and people that, may not be a real one yet, but they'll be one soon.
You're on the fence.
Right.
No, but I like you said, I like when people walk up to us too, because what we're trying to do with this is build a community, which means we want to interact with the people who listen to this podcast. We're not standoffish. We don't think that we're better than. We deal with the same struggles. We work through those struggles, and we try to provide the information to other people who can also benefit from it and work through their struggles. So we like when people come up to us. But I do want to warn y'all, this is my keeping it real moment. Asha's not used to this.
Oh
right?
My goodness.
Asha's not used to this. She's not used to people walking up to her going out and people noticing her in public. Me, this has been happening to me since I was 17 and I first started playing football, right? I've grown used to people coming up to me in the public. I've grown used to me being out in public and feeling like nobody knows me. But then I get messages from people online like, hey, I just saw you there. So it's like, I know how I have to carry myself in public because everybody's watching even when they're not watching.
Right.
But Asha, this is new to her.
Oh my goodness.
So you can't judge her when you just call out her name or walk up on her. She might look at you crazy because we was in a bakery after church a couple of weeks ago. And somebody recognized Asha and she was like, hey, Miss Steele. Matter of fact, I'm going to let you tell the story because you tell it better than I
didn't want to tell that story.
Well, we're going to tell the story today. You tell the story.
But no, I think it is true. It was a woman that was in the bakery with us, and she had came up and she said Miss Steele, and I was like, I'm looking around like, is there another Miss Steele in here? Because it is kind of surprising to me to hear people like constantly when we're in the grocery store, when we're out in public, like, oh, hey, I love you guys. I love your family. And then even call me by like my name, whether it be Miss Steele or first name basis. I'm just like always surprised because I'm like, who is you? Like, do I know you? I'll be feeling bad sometimes. Like, do I actually know this person or no? And then they say, who they are or how they know us. But no, it is definitely, I'll be surprised.
Yeah.
I'll be a little bit, like, okay, like, I don't really know. Yeah. I think the biggest thing, which I think we talked about before on a Keeping It Real moment, is if y'all come up, I love the interaction of just the dialogue, the small conversation, small talk that we have. But it is the like picture taking and stuff like that. If people come up and say like that, because I get a little bit, I can't fake a smile.
Because she ain't got my butt to grab. So normally she'll grab my butt in order to make herself smile if we got to take pictures. But when she by herself, hopefully she don't grab your butt.
Okay. Oh my goodness, no. But no, y'all, not to say I wouldn't take one, but if someone was to be like, oh, hey, can I get a picture? Whatever came to be. I know some pictures out there that may have surfaced, okay, that I'm looking like crazy smiling because it's just like, I don't know how to like just put on a smile like that and just have to keep doing it. Yeah. But no, I enjoy interacting with people in the community when we go out and they recognize us and they say something. I definitely love it. It's something to get used to, like you said, because I'm not used to it. Yeah. This is very new to me, but I enjoy it and I definitely enjoy the feedback. I love the feedback because it makes me proud of what we're doing, but it solidifies that what we're doing is the right thing. Yeah. And that is definitely helping other individuals is what we wanted to do. So
I told you that if you have a hard time learning how to smile on cue, you got to just go in the mirror and practice. This is what I did in college. I did not know how to smile. If you look at my pictures from high school and then in college, I will always smile without teeth. I'll just be like this.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't smile at all. So as I started to become more popular and people started to come up to me, I literally would sit in my dorm room or my off-campus apartment and practice on smiling so that I know how to smile on cue.
Yeah.
So to me, I think it's just cool to watch you in this journey because I was so caught up in mine that I really didn't get a chance to process it all because everything was happening so fast. And like, I'm the type of person that when I have any type of success, I'm moving on to the next success. Mm-hmm. I don't allow myself to really savor the moments. So to be on the outside looking in and seeing you go through somewhat of the same process that I went through, it's pretty cool to see. But just take my advice, sit in the mirror and just practice and you'll get better at it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to work on that.
But let's get into our message from a real one before we get into the topic. All right, it says, I just need a bit of guidance. Been together with my girlfriend 10 years, 2 kids, and we're new Christians, but really hesitant on marriage. I was not for homeschooling, but supported her, and she has been a stay-at-home mom for the past 3 years. I come home, do dishes, put the kids to bed. If I work late, we take turns waking up the kids. I do laundry, but don't fold. I'm always asking her if she needs or wants to take a nap, and she claims she can't rest on cue, and that I expect too much from her, and that I'm not helping when I do dishes, that it's my responsibility. I feel like she is emotionally dependent on me. There is no sense of freedom. I have a child outside the relationship that has been with us since we got together, and her and the mom have a lot of drama. She refuses to stay with my son alone. She takes it personal when he withdraws, and he's only 11. I just don't feel happy. However, I want to make it work for my kids, but I feel she is emotionally immature. It's a lot to unpack.
You wanna go?
Yeah, I mean, since there's a lot of different layers to this, I think the first thing is 10 years girlfriend, crazy.
Yeah.
That got to be fixed. Because if you're still hesitant on getting married, you should have been hesitant to have children. Mm-hmm. Because that's really a lifetime commitment that you have to this person. You're tying this person to a lifetime. Like, I know people say, I can't wait till you're 18, then you're grown and then you do your own thing and I don't have to communicate with the other parent. But if you're doing this the right way, you're going to have to communicate with that other parent for the rest of that child's life because you have to be there to support them and y'all have to be on the same page. So I don't really understand how people, and I can get that in your youth, but at an older age, I don't get how people are more willing to have kids with people, but then be hesitant to get married to that said person.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about that and what you just said is the last statement that's like, I really want to make it work for my kids, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people say that, and it could be damaging whether they realize it or not, because if you're in a relationship or wanting to get into a marriage or even hesitant about the marriage, not knowing what direction it is, you have to want to be there for you and for that person.
Yeah.
Because the kids are only kids for a limited time before they're adults and living their life, right? And when we're so child focused and focused on making it right for the kids, when it comes time for them to, live their life and leave the nest, now we're here together.
Yeah.
We're going to realize, okay, well, why? Right? And that's when you see people separating or getting divorced or parting ways because we were only here for the kids. And how helpful is that or healthy is that for the children if they aren't seeing, the ideal relationship with their parents growing up?
Right.
What are you instilling in them and the values that you're pouring into them unknowingly by just saying, oh, I only want to make it work for them. So I think you have to really shift that statement and your mindset to say, does this serve you and your partner?
Yeah.
Do y'all want to make it work for each other? Because that's what's going to really help y'all to get through and really surpass whatever challenges you're having and thrive moving forward.
Right.
So I think that really stuck out to me because I hear it said a lot and it speaks volumes, but I feel like it's some conversations that they really need to have it unpacked as far as just the roles that they're playing in the household, helping each other out, what that looks like. I know he said they had a child together.
They have 2 children together, and they have an outside child.
So they had 3 children all together.
Yeah.
So, and even I think she's a stay-at-home mom. She's homeschooling. So that itself could probably be very challenging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having to, stay at home all day with the children, taking care of the house, like trying to figure out and balance. And I know this from my own personal experience. Nurturing and pouring into your children while also having to pour into yourself and pour into your spouse, it's a lot when you're pouring from an empty cup.
Yeah.
So I think it really comes down to them having a conversation of what it looks like as far as support from him that she needs, not what he thinks is the support, and vice versa.
No, I think that's a great point. And I was going to make that point too. First of all, I think a lot of credit goes out to you because I don't want this to feel like we're saying everything that you're doing wrong or what you need to fix. So I want to give you credit for, going out there, making the money, providing for your family, and still coming home and doing all the things that you said you did in this message. Mm-hmm. But I think that Asha really brought up a great point because you said in here that your girl told you that when you're doing the dishes, you're not really helping her. So sometimes we can go out there and we can do things that we think is helping our partner instead of having a conversation and saying, hey, what can I do that is most beneficial to you? Right. And not what I think is more helpful for you. So sitting down and just having a clear outline of what your partner needs and then doing that, I think can help solve that problem. Another thing that I wanted to bring up too is I feel like, and without really knowing your story, from the language that you use about, I just want to make it work for my kids and how you're hesitant on marriage, people can feel when you have a lack of commitment towards them. Mm. Because not wanting to get married is you having a lack of commitment towards your girl.
Right.
You wanting to make it work for the kids is you having a lack of commitment to your girl. Mm-hmm. You have a commitment to your children, what you're trying to make it work for, but what about her?
Right.
People can feel that. And that causes an issue in your relationship when people feel like you're not fully committed to the relationship. So that is definitely a conversation that needs to be had as well. You talked about also having a blended family. We have multiple episodes on how challenging this is. Mm-hmm. And I've been in a position where I'm like you, who wrote this message, where our oldest daughter, Leah, she withdraws as well. And I would say to Asha, but she's only 10. She's only 11. And while that makes sense in our mind, it doesn't ease the pain that your partner feels from your child withdrawing, especially if they're playing that mother role in your child's life. They want to feel like a bio parent, although they're not the bio parent. They want to be appreciated. They want to be loved. They want to be supported. So regardless of, your child's age, it still hurts. And I struggled with realizing that. And I hope that from you listening to our other podcast episodes about blended families, you can see what you can do in order to help bring that relationship closer and bring your household closer. It's not easy, but just saying that your girl needs to be more understanding because of your child's age, that's not going to solve nothing. I've tried it. It ain't going to work.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I feel like, just to touch on that a little bit, I think, and I don't know if they have had these conversations, but it's very challenging when all the adults in a blended family aren't on the same page, right?
Yeah.
When there's tension between bio mom and stepmom, and, you know, sometimes dad is just like on the fence because he doesn't really know how to go about it, it's an issue.
Yeah.
So I think coming together and having a dialogue, like, okay, we don't have to get along, we don't have to be friends, but we have to be on the same page if you're raising a child. Like we talked about on a previous episode where we were talking to our guest Ron, and he explained how singing a different song when raising a child is going to be very confusing. Yeah. Like if we not all on the same melody, they're not going to know which way to go, right? And so I think when you are all on the same page and you're all in agreement to, the priority should be raising the child, we have certain dialogues, like within this household, we had to sit down and have very clear understandings and boundaries and discussions to say, okay, well, this is how parenting looks like for us. What is the respect factors amongst us and the child as well? Because if we're not all inclusive and all on the same page and understanding, it's going to cause tension. So I feel like you were saying a lot of deep conversations need to be had. A lot of uncomfortable conversations need to be had to really have a better understanding and give clarity to why things are the way they are, and how they can be improved or what things need to change moving forward. But I think it like I said, it just all starts with that conversation and them both being receptive to each other's perspective. It's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. I think even just trying to, just have this, question from a real one, answering it within a few minutes, because I can see both, sides, like you said, of how things could be impacting him and things could be impacting her. But I think what you say about him being big enough to say, if I do go out to work and I'm, at work for all these hours and I'm coming home and trying to help, I think that's big, because a lot of times people go out and they come home and they just like, I don't want to do nothing. Yeah. I was just out putting all this work in, but he's wanting to get the help.
And that makes them like years ahead of other couples.
Yeah.
Because most men in this situation, if they're going out there and they're the breadwinner, the wife or the lady is a stay-at-home parent, they're not going to want to come home and do anything.
Right.
So the fact that you want to put the effort is a great thing. You just need to have a conversation of where to direct that effort. Mm-hmm. That's an easy fix. That's an easy conversation to have. So I think that's really big of you to already be on that path of doing it.
Yeah.
There are two more things that stuck out to me. I don't know what else stuck out to you, but you talked about you not having a sense of freedom. And I can understand that, because you go to work, you're working all these hours, you come home, you're taking care of your family, you probably feel like you don't have any you time, which is really important for you to still have your own identity and still find time for yourself when raising a family. But I suggest you look at her perspective, because oftentimes as men, especially men who work outside the home and their wife is a stay-at-home mom, or your girl's a stay-at-home mom, we think that they have more freedom just because they're staying at home. Mm-hmm. She can feel like she doesn't have a sense of freedom either, because while you're at work, she's running around with your two kids. She's taking care of them. She's taking care of the home. And then when you come home, she still don't have no free time, because now she's probably helped take care of you. She's probably trying to get things done that she couldn't get done because she was with the kids all day. Mm-hmm. So y'all both probably feel like you don't have a sense of freedom. So sitting down and having a conversation of, hey, what can we do to make sure that we're supporting each other to have our alone time, so that when we come back to our family, we're energized, we're rejuvenated and ready to pour into this marriage, into our parenting. Like you said, it's hard to pour for an empty cup. Y'all are both probably empty right now. So how can y'all sit down and have a conversation to find out ways that you can free yourselves from the responsibilities that come from raising a family and taking care of, work and things of that nature? What was the other part? I don't know. So I'll think about it. If you have if you wanted to speak on that, I'm gonna think about what I was going to say.
No, I think definitely a starting point, if they haven't already, to go back and listen to some of our previous podcasts, whether it be the Blended Family podcast or even, navigating conflict in their relationship. I think listening to those episodes together, while also seeking other resources, whether it's professional resources, going to a professional to help them with whether it's counseling or whatever, or even just researching things online. I think they have to come to an understanding together. What do we want for our future? What does this look like for things to work for both of us? Like I said, what does support look like for him and what does support look like for her? And go from there. I think it all comes down to them really just sitting down and being more intentional with each other and the way they handle things.
Yeah. So it came back to my mind what I was going to say. In regards to emotional immaturity, you said that you feel like she's emotionally immature. Your situation is very complex. From y'all being together 10 years, y'all have 2 kids, you're new to Christianity, y'all not married, she's a stay-at-home mom, you have a blended family. There's a lot of layers to this relationship that most of us are not emotionally mature enough to handle. So if she is emotionally immature, it makes sense because a lot of us haven't been taught how to deal with these things. So regardless of the fact that we've gotten older, we haven't grown emotionally. You also said that she's emotionally dependent on you. As a leader, that should be a good thing in your eyes. Yeah. Because she sees that you're advanced in an area that she is not. So it is your responsibility as a leader to teach how to be emotionally mature. That doesn't mean it's all your responsibility. She can definitely go seek help outside of the home, but a lot of the things that we learn need to come from within the home, starting from when we're a child. So if you have done the work to be more emotionally mature, then teach her how to do it so that she doesn't need to be as emotionally dependent on you. But even from this, the message that you sent, I think that there's room for you to grow emotionally too, to be able to recognize the emotions that she's dealing with. Yeah. Because it seems like I'm not going to say you struggle, but there's room for you to grow in perspective taking, which is a part of emotional maturity, to understand somebody else's perspective and what they may be going through, because that will allow y'all to build that closeness or that connectedness that you need in order to have a successful relationship. And I'm not saying that to talk at you or talk down on you, because I've had to do it. I'm still in the process of emotionally maturing. But man, like, if you're dependent on me, Asha, in certain areas, I'm not looking at that as a bad thing. But clearly you see that I'm at a certain level in that area of my life that you're not at yet. So I have to carry you just like you carry me in other areas of my life. That's the benefit of being in a relationship, is that in the areas that you're weak or you're not as developed, your partner can help you. So I wouldn't necessarily look at it in a bad way, but I get wanting your partner to be a little bit more independent.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a lot to unpack for them. It's a lot that they need to discuss, but hopefully this is just some, starting points for them that help them in their relationship and moving forward. But let's get into today's topic, okay?
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about shame, and we felt like it was important to talk about shame and how it shows up in a relationship, because we feel like that is a huge barrier that a lot of couples deal with. And I want to make sure that we define shame in the right way, because a lot of people may confuse shame with guilt, but they're completely different things. So guilt is a feeling that you have when you do somebody else wrong. Shame is a feeling that you, I'm about to say a feeling that you feel, a feeling that you experience when you feel like you're a bad person, when you feel like you're unworthy of being loved. So shame, again, is more about yourself and what you believe about yourself and what you believe you're deserving of. And guilt is more of how you feel you've done somebody else wrong, which is easy to be fixed, because with guilt, you did something wrong, you can make an apology and move forward to that person. Shame is a lot harder to deal with because it requires us to look internal and start to unpack some of our deep held beliefs of how we feel about ourselves and how we feel like the world sees us.
Yeah. I think when we first had this conversation about shame and guilt, it was very eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
Because I was not necessarily looking at things from the shame perspective, but the guilt perspective for us in our particular situation that we've experienced, or at least I've experienced with us.
Yeah.
It was always the guilt factor. So like you said, it's like, oh, I feel guilty for what I did. Let me, clean it up. Let me fix it. But the shame factor is a lot deeper, because it's like, oh, this is me.
Yeah.
And when you don't know how to necessarily fix you, it's hard to really take accountability for that, because it's just like, okay, once I acknowledge it, then what?
Yeah, you can't just look in the mirror and say sorry and then go about your day. Or it
takes
deeper.
some deep work to address that shame.
Yeah.
So I think that was very eye-opening when we had that conversation.
Yeah. So let's get into a little bit of the conversation that we shared, because me and Asha, again, we try to have these deep conversations, not surface level conversations in our relationship, because we are trying to really do this the right way. And we understand that we didn't learn how to do this the right way. So it requires us to have tough conversations in order to grow.
The surface conversation.
Exactly. So we had a conversation about shame, about the shame that we may have felt in our lives, in our childhood, in our marriage, and how that impacted our marriage and what we can do to change. So do you want to start with sharing some of the things that you were shameful about that impacted our relationship?
Yeah, so like I said, I felt initially, and I didn't realize it was shame, but in the beginning of our relationship, I realized that there was a lot of things that I need to work on, as far as my anger, my attitude, how I addressed or handled situations, even to the point of getting physical, which we talked a little bit about. And I didn't realize how deep it was until we started to really have certain discussions and certain things started to transpire, where we're just like, I think one time where you said, oh, we're not doing this, that I realized, okay, this is wrong.
You're talking about the physical.
Yeah. And I didn't never address it as shame. It was always guilty for me, right? Because and me handling things wrong, and me, us having a disagreement, and me, going off on a rant and just spazzing, saying things that, is hurtful to you, I feel guilty about it after the fact, right? Because it's just like, if you care about this person, you love this person, then why are you treating them like this? Regardless of what has transpired, there's a better way to handle the situation, right? The better way to control your emotions or your frustrations or anger, whatever it is. And I didn't know how to do that. It was learned behavior. Like we had discussed, it was trauma that I had took on from seeing people in my upbringing, act a certain way when they didn't get their way. Act a certain way when they felt like they were being hurt, or they wasn't being heard, or they was upset with something. The outcome wasn't how they expected. It was automatically to respond with anger. And so that's what I did, based off of the things that I seen, how I was brought up as well, things that I experienced. And so in our relationships, a lot of times when I didn't feel heard, or when I was upset with something, things weren't going how I wanted, or we were having a back and forth, I would immediately get angry and get frustrated and get loud and then start throwing stuff, get physical. And like I said, I always felt guilty, but it came to a point when we had that conversation that the shame set in. And I didn't even identify it as shame then because I didn't know. Because like I said, we didn't have the tools and resources that we have now to really clarify what that was. But I felt that shame because it was like, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I control this anger? Where is this anger even coming from? Because in situations where sometimes it could easily be resolved by just a discussion, why does it have to go from 0 to 100 real quick? You know what I'm saying?
Because your anger was a product of the shame.
Right.
Right? Because you just talked about how if somebody did something to you that was hurtful, you didn't know how to communicate your hurt. So you would lash out in anger, and then you would feel guilty for you lashing out about your anger. But once we sat down and we had a conversation and we was able to unpack the shame that, hey, I know this is not right because I feel guilty after doing this.
Right.
But until I deal with this shame of not being able to properly communicate my feelings or the things that are happening to me, then I will never be able to fix this.
Right.
And once we had that conversation, all that stopped.
Right.
And I think that in order to grow from that, that requires grace. Because some people who listen to our previous episode or maybe listen to this is like, oh no, once that happens, I'm out of here.
Right.
This is not like it was an ongoing thing where Asha got physical. But again, as we talked about in the message from the real one, I was at a certain level as far as emotional maturity. I didn't grow up seeing my parents be physical with each other. I never really saw that in my household or within my family. So when it happened, I just said that. I said, yo, we're not doing this.
Right.
Like, I don't care what you seen growing up, what happened in your other relationships. I'm not participating in this. And then we sat down and had the conversation and she talked about her childhood. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is why you do it. It's nothing wrong with you, but this is how people have taught you to handle conflict. So let's work on this. I know everything's not going to be perfect, but just make the commitment that you're going to try to learn how to communicate better. And then we haven't had any issues with that since me and her first met. So I think that it takes a lot of grace, and it's big of you to even go to that place to unpack that shame, because a lot of people don't want to do that.
Yeah. But you know what's even, like, to go even deeper, I feel like with that, the shame aspect, and as far as that particular situation or the experience that we had together, stemming from even early childhood, right? Because you think about it as when you have a child and you're raising them and they're doing something that's wrong, right? If you respond to them negatively by yelling at them or hitting them and disciplining them, their response more than likely is to respond the same way, right? So when they don't get their way, they're going to lash out. They're going to cry. They're going to hit. They're going to throw a tantrum. Versus how if they are upset or something is going on and you sit them down, you allow for them to really regulate their emotions and to calm down and to speak to them in a softer tone, to really try to understand what it is so that they can understand what they're feeling and their emotions, to give words to it. Now they can work through that, right? And I saw that growing up because I've experienced that. And so I didn't want to experience that with our children as well, because like I said, that all stemmed from the shame of the anger and the frustrations and not knowing how, because I wasn't taught that. Yeah. And so I think that it, like I said, it all stemmed from trauma in childhood, which I think a lot of people don't realize when it comes to shame. It's like it's suppressed. You can suppress it over time and just push it down, and it becomes who you are in a sense, right? It kind of like is like a trait that you have, that you carry with you, that you don't even realize it, and it's brought up at the wrong times, right? Yeah. And so upon us having that dialogue and that understanding of, okay, well, what is this? Why are you acting like this? Like you said, It was me being ashamed that I don't know how to articulate my emotions. I don't know how to put words to those emotions and really communicate effectively so that I can get through it. So now I'm just irate like a child. I'm throwing a tantrum because it's just, I don't have the words to say.
Yeah, but
I don't know how to sit down and really have that discussion to work through with you.
Yeah. You just brought up a good point. You said we sat down, or I had a conversation like, yo, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
What are you searching for? In essence, I'm searching for your need in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when your partner is going through this process of becoming emotionally mature, that one of the things that your partner can do is to search for the need in your partner. If they're doing something, if they're acting out of character. And I say this because even you brought up, you know, how important it is to learn this in childhood. Even when we're dealing with Amaya right now, right? There'll be times where she'll go over to the pantry and she'll be trying to grab a chip by herself and she can't reach it. And at first she's trying to grab it. She's cool because I think in her mind, she's like, oh, I can do this.
Right.
But eventually she's just like, and then you go over to her and be like, what's wrong? Do you want a chip? And she'll go, yeah.
Right.
So she'll be irate. You search for her need. You find out what her need is, and she completely calms down.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take that same approach with your partner, if they're acting out of character, if they're getting mad, if they're going 0 to 100, take the time in that moment to say, hey, I see something's wrong. What do you need from me in this moment? Or what are you searching for? Mm-hmm. And that can be the thing that just changes everything around like it does with Amaya.
Yeah, I think that's big. That definitely can, because you're not, in a sense, fighting fire with fire.
Right.
Like you're trying to put out the fire.
Right.
And I think being able to look at the situation in totality and understand, like, okay, this is not who this person is. Something is clearly triggering this, and really stepping into the role of the responsible role of caring for your partner, being attentive to your partner, acknowledging your partner, and seeing them and saying, okay, well, what's going on? Let's figure this out. A lot of people don't do. And I think when you do that, it allows for that person to feel seen, feel heard, and sit down and reflect like, okay, well, dang, I am kind of tripping. This is why.
Yeah.
And now that dialogue opens up a conversation where you may not have discussed or you may not have brought up because you were suppressing something or you didn't know how to.
Yeah. So since you was just so forthcoming with where you felt shame, I guess I'll dive into mine.
I'll just throw it out there.
Right. So I think that a place that shame showed up for me was not knowing how to raise a family or be a leader in a household, be a leader of a family, because I didn't see it growing up. Nobody taught me. I've always stepped up to the challenge. I always took on the responsibilities, but it didn't come without its bumps and bruises. So I felt shame in that sense that I have so many people depending on me, and now I'm just like trying to figure it out. Like whenever you're in a leadership position, whenever you have a bunch of people who are dependent on you, you want to feel like you know what you're doing.
Right.
Like you don't want to play around with people's lives.
Right.
And because I didn't know how to do this, I felt like I was experimenting with a lot that I was doing. And I felt shame about that. But I think one of the great things about me and your relationship is, I think for a lot of men, they hide their shame because they don't want other people to judge them. They don't want other people to know the battle that they're fighting internally. But I've always felt comfortable enough to tell you that if I'm struggling in the area, if I don't know how to do something, I can just come and tell you, listen, I'm struggling right here. I don't know what to do right here. You'll give me the confidence in order to figure it out, or you'll help me do it as well. So I think that it's extremely important, because we talked about what partners can do for those who are struggling emotionally. But from a woman, if your man is struggling, I think it's extremely important to create an environment where the man can come and talk to you about the internal warfare that they're going through and feel like you won't judge them about it, because then it will allow them to open up more and to figure things out. Because when things are not spoken out loud, I think the enemy has a greater chance of winning the war or winning the battle, because you can't speak about it. Nobody knows you're suffering, but if other people know that you're suffering and they care about you, they can come to your aid and help you. And I say this because we had another message that we were going to do on this episode, but it was like really long. Like it was like a 5-page paper. But this couple was going through a tough time where they had picked up and moved from Virginia to Florida. And the wife found a job immediately. And the husband ended up finding a job, but it was a part-time job. And then he ended up finding full-time work. And then he ended up getting fired. So he was stay at home with the kids, and she was working overtime, picking up 12, 13-hour shifts. And it was too much for her. And she tried to have conversations with her husband, and he wouldn't listen. He just played the game all the time. And when she tried to talk about this, he would just shut down or get angry. And I think that there's a lot of layers to that situation as well. But I'm pretty sure there's that level of, there's that feeling of shame that he's dealing with, from the simple fact that they picked up and moved. She was able to find full-time work right away, and he's been struggling to find his footing in this new place.
Yeah.
So when she wants to bring up that he's not working or he's not, helping out, he's like, I'm trying, something's not working. It's not working for me. I'd rather not talk about it at all. This shame is going to turn into anger because I don't want to say, man, maybe I need to develop. Maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I need to do more. Maybe I need to change things about myself in order to provide for my family. Instead, I don't want you to know what I'm dealing with internally, so I'm just going to turn to anger every time you try to have this conversation. So I think it's extremely important, especially for men, to be able to speak about what they're going through so that your partner knows that it's not them. It's something that you're struggling with internally. Because sometimes women can internalize that they're doing something wrong or something's wrong with them, when really it's just the war that we're fighting inside that's getting the best of us, and we don't really know how to talk about this shame.
Yeah. I think what you're saying, like, it triggers your emotions and your nervous system when you feel that shame, right?
That fight or flight.
Yeah. So you get into that attack mode, like, oh, I feel like I'm being attacked, so now I have to, stand up and do this in defense of myself when you feel that shame, because it's just like, that it's there, but you don't really know how to handle it. And when you're being, or someone is presenting to you or trying to have you identify it, it's just like, oh no, I'm not ready for this. So let me do something in defense of that. And that's how that surfaces. But for you, I would like for you to share, like, how did you identify that shame? Like, how did that show up for you to say, okay, this is me feeling shame?
I'm very in tune with myself. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I know my feelings. I just needed a trusted person to share my feelings with.
Did you feel like you were exhibiting shame with us? So you said, like, you felt like you didn't know how to take on the role of being a leader or how to do certain things. Do you feel like your actions exhibited that you were feeling shame, or no, you were able to suppress it?
No, absolutely not. We suck. We may think that we're doing a good job of hiding it, but we're really not. So like most men or most people, when they feel shame, they go in isolation. So as we talked about before in the previous episodes, even with me with the Bengals and Leah being diagnosed with cancer and not really knowing how to deal with things, I isolated myself. That's what I do. Like, when I feel like I'm just inadequate or I'm not up to par, I tend to go into this shell But you helped bring me out of that shell because you don't judge me for my struggles or where I feel like are my shortcomings. But nah, I don't think that I was able to suppress it and just be Superman and just work my way through it. Like, nah, I know that I isolated myself when I'm going through certain things, and that's stuff that I won't say that I've completely healed, but I'm not where I used to be when it comes to that. Or even when things didn't work out, when Leah went through cancer, I made it back to football, and then I got injured and I had to walk away from the sport. That there was a huge amount of shame, because I felt like I wasn't showing up the way that I needed to show up for my family and for my community, because my goal was to be this big time football player, but I felt like I was just dealing with challenge after challenge that didn't allow me to really step into myself or step into my greatness. And when I decided that it was time for that phase of my life to come to an end, and I didn't know which direction I was going to go in my life, I did feel a huge sense of shame because there was a certain lifestyle that I promised you, that I promised our kids. And it didn't seem like I was going to be able to fulfill that promise because I thought it was going to come from football. But like I said, the fact that I'm able to talk to you and work through these internal wars or battles that I have allowed me to overcome those challenges to get to the place where I'm at today. That, my goal remains the same of being able to provide y'all a certain lifestyle, but the way that I'm obtaining the goal has changed. Like the goal can remain the same, but the strategy has to remain flexible. And being able to work through that with you has allowed me to still be on that path of reaching a goal, but just through a different pathway. So I think, again, there's so much power in being able to label your shame, to be able to talk about your shame, because you can break through those barriers. You can break through those walls that shame builds up.
Yeah. I think that's why it's so important to be emotionally aligned with your partner, because you recognize that shame, right? You recognize
when I'm
you recognize something is off. Yeah. And a lot of people don't. So is when you are feeling that shame, or the person is feeling that shame, they get into, in a sense, like a sunken place. You get into a depression. You feel like, you say, you're being judged, even if no one knows. You're judging yourself the most for those actions, right? And you don't know how to handle them. You don't know how to deal with them. And so you get into this like space where you're withdrawn emotionally, you're detached from things, and your partner's trying to reach you, but they can't. And a lot of times that calls for people to, separate, for them to have, strife in their relationship. And I think when you are aligned with your partner emotionally, mentally, where you can identify clearly there's something that's off, right? I noticed a change in the patterns in your behavior that is not really sitting right. And not really taking, it's nothing for an answer, right? Because that's what you do a lot of times when you don't want to address the shame, when you don't want to address the issues. It's just like, it's nothing, right? You try to brush it off. But I can clearly see that it is something, right? And so that's when you have to know how to go around that and really address your partner in a way that makes them feel comfortable expressing themselves, right? Where they don't feel like they're going to be judged, where they don't feel like you're just going to not hear them or attack them or make them feel worse than what they already have felt. So I think that's really important, being able to have those conversations and to identify when that conversation is necessary to be had. Because if you don't, that's how it contributes to, unfortunately, the demise of a lot of relationships.
Yeah, I think that you brought up a good point. It's even when you recognize that your partner is going through something, or even if you approach them in a place that is not criticism and contempt. Because even if we go to the second message we just referred to, it's easy for her to come home after working 12, 13 hours, see him on a game and just be pissed. Like, why you always on the game? I'm out here working. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. Instead of just saying, you wasn't doing this when we was in Virginia.
Right.
You wasn't on the game all the time. You wasn't on the game all the time. What's going on? Because the way I see it, and again, I don't know their full story, but when people are going through a tough time, they're going through a dark time, they try to escape to pleasure when they're suffering from pain. And if he's constantly on the game all the time, that is something he gets pleasure from, so he doesn't have to deal with the pain that he's going through. This is his escape. Just like there's an escape for people who go out and have sex. There's an escape for people who go out and drink, who go out and do drugs. People try to find escapes for their pain. And this could be why he's on the game all the time, because he doesn't know how to deal with the pain. He doesn't know what else to do because he's trying to do everything he knows how to do, but nothing is working. So being able to sit down and just have that conversation and bring a different approach to it, I think lowers the walls for people to open up and really share what they're going through internally.
You know, and you just saying that right now, this is just me throwing it out there, right? I don't know if this is going to knock it out the park, but being able to look at the situation for what it is and to say, well, how can I just shift it, right? I might not completely change it, but how can I shift it or get the ball rolling, right? And so, and noticing your partner is not doing the things that they used to do. They're exhibiting different behavior. He is on the game all the time. Maybe even saying like, you know, hey, let's just have some time away for you and me, right? Let's just go to the park and, you know, or have a little lunch date. Something where you and him can be intentional where it's just y'all, right? And in that time where y'all are enjoying each other and y'all having a good time, eating ice cream, eating lunch, whatever the case may be, something small where it's not over the top and y'all can be intentional. Hey, I noticed you're not yourself lately. I noticed that you're on the game. I wanted to, you know, get you out the house, get some fresh air, us enjoy each other's company. What's on your mind, right? When you're able to remove your partner from that space where it seems unsettling and try to get them in a space where it's just like they can possibly breathe the fresh air and see like there's more to life,
to go, you know, work out or something,
right?
You know,
they can change their environment to change their mindset and change the energy to where it's like, okay, yeah, you know what? I needed this. I needed this fresh air. Like you say all the time, when you may be in a slump and you do go out and you know, you go outside, you breathe the fresh air, you go to the gym, whatever case maybe, you like, you know what? Thank you. I needed that, right? Yeah. It allows you to open up your mind to seeing like, yeah, I was in a rut. Thank you for doing that. Let's, you know, have a dialogue now. I'm able to express myself. I'm more open to expressing myself. So like I said, that may not say it's going to change anything, but being able to take both of them from the situation that they're in right now, where it's like, oh, I come home, you doing the same thing, you on the game, and we get into the same arguments, we get the same outcome. I feel like he's not listening to me. He don't want to listen to what she got to say. It's a back and forth. Like, let's just shift the narrative and how we approach the conversation. And I know a lot of people will probably be listening like, oh, that's a lie. I'm not dealing with this. I'm not doing that. I'm not,
sign up for marriage.
Exactly. But that's exactly my point is when you're married to someone, it's through for better, for worse. Yeah. Right? No one knows what that worse is going to look like. It's different for everyone. Yeah. But if you're truly invested in your marriage, if you're truly invested in your partner, you understand that worse is when I have to show up.
Yo, I think that is a great conversation that people should have. What is your worst? What is your idea of worse? Mm-hmm. When we go up to this altar and we say for better or worse, just tell me what your worst is so that we know if we should be doing this in the first place. Mm-hmm. Because if you're thinking, because I saw a clip of somebody say that, ex-wife saying that when she was going blind, her husband just picked up and left. Mm. So everybody has their different idea of what worse is, what I'm willing to go through with you. Mm-hmm. And it's important to have that open and honest conversation before you say I do, to understand what your partner is willing to endure with you. Right. Because everybody doesn't have the same capacity to fight through the tough times as everybody else. Yeah. So understanding your partner's capacity allows you to make a better decision on if this is the right person for me to marry. Yeah. Like, forget all this is going to be amazing, it's going to be happily ever after. No, what is your capacity? Yeah. What have you been through? What kind of challenges have you already overcame in your life? Let's look at the challenges we have overcame in our relationship. Can we really do to death do us part? So I think that you brought up a great point that for better or for worse, it's different for a lot of people.
Yeah. So I think for the viewers out there that are listening, some things that you can do when you do feel like you're feeling shame, and your relationship is affecting your relationship or it's impacting you as an individual. I think first, just acknowledging it, that it's there, or taking accountability for it is the first step. Yeah. Like I said, once I was able to acknowledge, like, okay, this is what I'm feeling, to, you know, put a name towards it and to really take, in a sense, ownership of it, right? Not to try to suppress it, not to hide it, not to feel bad for it, but to say, you know what, this is something that I want to work on. This is something that's impacting me negatively and I don't want it to. Then you're able to say, you know what, okay, now what do I need to do? Mm-hmm. When you don't know or you don't address that there is a problem, you don't take ownership of it, you don't take accountability for it, you don't know what to fix, right? So I think first doing that is really important. I think from there, just talking about it, discussing it. Like I said, like we say, you and I having an open dialogue, you feeling like you can come to me and have a conversation when you are feeling a certain way, and me being able to really hear you and give you sound advice, or just, even if it is just listening, you're able to discuss it and work through that shame and that feeling that you're having. Or if it is for you seeking a professional so that they can help you, you know, working through that situation. But I think talking about it helps. Yeah. Because anytime you bottle something in, you keep it closed in, is not going to help at all. You're just suppressing it and you're not really healing. Yeah. And the next thing, I think, the biggest thing, I think, is just reframing the shame and not allowing it to just own you, to define who you are as a person, right? I was angry, but I'm not an angry person, right? I was upset and frustrated, but I'm not a mean, bitter person, right? There were things that were contributing to that, things that were triggering that, right? But this is not who I am. I don't have to have this label on me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think when you're able to reframe that and to say, you know what, this is not who I am, this is something that I'm experiencing and I can change that experience, then it helps you with really dealing with that shame and healing that shame and working through it, because you're not taking, you know, it on as who you are. It's not your character.
I'm the king of reframing. Boy, I will reframe the mess out of stuff. Yeah. I don't think that people understand the power of reframing. Mm-hmm. And it's a concept that we teach a lot about in positive psychology because it's a key to resilience. When Asha's talking about reframing what shame means to you, it's as simple as this. Understand what you are shameful about and ask yourself, is this in my control or is this out of my control? If I'm shameful that I can't find another job, that just means I need to continue to work on myself, to get a new skill, to get more education, to do something different in order to get my desired outcome. Mm-hmm. So I used to beat myself up over it because I thought something was wrong with me, but there's a learned skill or behavior that I can go out there and get in order to reach my desired outcome. Instead of just saying, woe is me, I'm not good enough, nobody wants to hire me, I don't have this type of background. Reframe it in a way that this is an opportunity for you to grow. Mm-hmm. This is a challenge for you to grow. This is a chance for you to go out there and do the things that you've always wanted to do. Because if people are not hiring you in the field that you've always been in, how about you now go to the field where you always wanted to be in? Yeah. How about you go try to do something that you always tried to do, since you're in a period where nothing else is working for you? Being able to reframe the things that are happening to you in your life is such a powerful tool to use. Even, I tell you, bro, when I was dealing with all my injuries at Penn State, the torn ACL, MCL my freshman year, the broken leg my second year, my dad used to say something to me all the time that really just changed the way that I looked at stuff. I would be like depressed that I kept getting injured and my dreams weren't coming true. And he would say, man, this is God just breaking you down to build you back up together. So when you make it to the NFL, you won't have to deal with this. That was a lie. But the reframing at that time gave me the power to say, you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
So let me make it back from this injury so that I can go on and make it to the NFL. If my dad didn't help me reframe my way of thinking, that thinking I was damaged goods, like I heard people say about me, I would have never made it. Yeah. When Leah got diagnosed with cancer and the doctors told us she had a 50% chance of dying, I kept focusing on the 50% chance of dying. But then, and even this is after me and you had got baptized. And I'm like, how we get baptized and God still allowed this to happen to Leah. Mm-hmm. But the moment I reframed it and I stopped looking at the 50% chance that she had of dying, I started looking at the 50% chance she still had at living. I was able to reframe that God didn't allow this to happen to Leah, but maybe he revealed the fact that she had cancer so that we had a chance to save her life. Mm-hmm. It may not have been true, but that the power of reframing gave me that will to fight that battle with cancer. Yeah. So the power of reframing is so real. I don't know if we should do an episode. I don't know if this is the right type of podcast to do this type of episode, but if you learn how to reframe things in your life, bro, you become the most resilient person ever.
For sure. So I think that this was a very impactful episode. I hope that you guys think that this was impactful, that it was helpful to you if you're feeling shame in your relationship, to know that you're not alone, to know that you can work through it, and to really give you the resources and tools that you need so that you can work through it. And so until next time, you guys, keep it real.
Yes, sir.